Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone, to those joining from India, and warm good morning, in fact, to our friends and colleagues in Europe. Welcome to the Learning Planet Festivals. Welcome to the Learning Planet Festival and our event hosted by the Human Potential Circle, which is focusing on showcasing the workshop developed by the Human Potential Circle on empowering young people to own technology for good. This workshop, as I've mentioned, this showcase session is happening as a part of the Learning Planet Festival, which is organized annually by the Learning Planet Alliance as well as UNESCO to celebrate the International Day of Education. So, a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us. And today in this event, we are going to be focusing on the workshop itself, the pedagogy of the workshop, and most interestingly, two of our young leaders from India have joined us, and they who were a key part of the workshops, along with our lead facilitator, John Yu, who was again one of the most important curators of the workshop itself. So today we will be hearing from everyone, and we will be discussing all these themes of technology, AI, education, and most importantly, how do we as young people deal with technology in a positive way. So before we go any further, just a bit about the Human Potential Circle. So the Human Potential Circle was started by Robert Timmer and myself, Keshav, along with John Yu, Hania Othman, and many other members. And the idea was that the vision behind the Human Potential Circle is to enable more people unlock their own potential and create a positive impact in the world by creating a space of trust and collaboration between each other through conversations that are held very frequently over the year. And through that process, I think this workshop has arisen and emerged. So that's the background of the Human Potential Circle. But most importantly, we will be first hearing from our co-founder Robert Timmer about about the Human Potential Circle itself. So once again, I thank you, and we look forward to all the again insightful things that will emerge from the session today. So thank you once again.
Good morning, my name is Robert Timmer and I'd like to welcome you to meet up with the Human Potential Circle. The Human Potential Circle was started by Keshav and myself about 1.5 years ago. It rests in the core beliefs that if we create the right environment and the right principles, we can unlock true human potential. To actually prove that we can actually unlock that human potential, we started off a trial effort about 1.5 years ago. This trial effort was seeing about what principles need to be there, what is the input of participants, and does it really work? It actually came also in a rather challenging environment because we were still starting up during the time that COVID was raging through the world, over the world. So what did we do? We invited a group of 9 people and we actually met up and created the right environment. This environment consisted about rules and principles, where those rules and principles were about respect, accepting, being open and being curious. By taking this approach and listening towards each other, we defined a concrete goal. This concrete goal is something we would actually like to share more about and will be done by Keshav, Shanyu and Hania today. This goal was about training for digital anxiety for young kids, recognizing the impact of a digital world on kids and that it was challenging during COVID, but still now. It was also rather funny that we chose this digital anxiety because none of us has been able to actually meet each other. We all live all over the world, ranging from the Netherlands to India, to France, to people who continuously travel. Then focused on digital anxiety, we came up with a training. We were very happy that we had our first training end of last year for a group of school kids in India. But instead of me talking more, I would like to give it over to Keshav and Jean-Yu, and please share what we have done with the digital anxiety training and what we aim to do more with the Human Potential Circle. Thank you, and we look forward to our next steps. Bye.
So that was Robert again, and as he talked about the Human Potential Circle. So this is this is again our first, let's say, manifestation of what can happen when like-minded people who come together and unlock their potential. So today, now moving ahead, I'm going to introduce to you all our panelists for this insightful discussion, starting with John Yu, my colleague from the Human Potential Circle. John Yu Mijon holds a master's degree in public international law and specialized in personal data protection law. He specialized in information security and privacy, focusing on the implementation of zero trust network architecture. His research carried out within the regulatory framework led him to write articles on the use of data and metadata generated for zero trust security to demonstrate compliance with various regulations, GDPR, CCPA, namely, and standards, and various standards. John Yu works as data protection specialist with the IT department of the European Space Agency, as guest lecturer at Antwerp Management School and the chief technology officer of Enove. Welcome, John Yu, and thank you for everything that you've done so far. Our next speaker is Jay Kapoor. Jay Kapoor is a student of IBDP from Sun City School, Gurugram in India. He identifies himself as an inquirer, a critical thinker, and a caring person. His hobbies include video games, graphic designing, and VFX. He also has a deep interest in physics. Being an IBDP student, he's also become very open-minded. He's also making LGBTQI+ policy for his school with his fellow peers and his mentors. So thank you, Jay, once again for joining us. Finally, we have Sanvi Dhingra. Again, student from Sun City School. Sanvi is an incoming senior at Sun City School. She's always had an immense love for writing, along with being published by a few organizations, including Teens for Teens. She has authored as well as co-authored quite a few books on a variety of topics. Her first book, published book, is Radius of Us. She's the founder of Adol Psych as well as Cinderella's Little Shop. And again, Jay and Sanvi, we're looking forward to knowing more about your ventures as well. And Cinderella's Little Shop is a nonprofit that makes that aims to make underprivileged women self-reliant. So we are, I think, in for a really wonderful discussion today with all our panelists. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over the proceedings to my colleague John Yu.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, also for attending and participating. Yeah, well, I'm glad actually that well, on two aspects. First, that we can come back on the workshop that we had with the Sun City School, but also because we can exchange once again with Jay and Sanvi. I mean, I've learned a lot also myself from this workshop. Maybe just a quick word about, let's say, because I think, well, initially when we were looking for how can we work with the youth on topics, we evoked about many different topics, such as well, all the environmental issues, the climate change, and all that, but also technology. And I think, well, most of us in groups in the Human Potential Circle, we were very technology inclined. Anya, unfortunately, is not here today, but she is probably at the top of the technology, being working for a blockchain company, being fully remote and very specialized into that. But yeah, I think I was really glad that we can let's say act on that part. I actually just wanted not to monopolize the discussion here. I wanted actually to start by exchanging with, well, the main actors here, Jay and Sanvi, and I wanted to start with maybe a couple of well, exchange on some questions, but also if you have some question on your side, or if you want to react, feel free. And if you have questions, maybe you can put them in the chat. But yeah, my first question is to Sanvi or Jay. If you look back at our workshop, our results of the workshop, without, let's say, looking maybe at your notes, what would be what problem do you think we need to tackle? What problems with technology did we touch upon, and what stayed in your mind?
I think we should definitely look at creating equitable access to technology for all. And I would focus on solving problems that are creating a digital divide between those who are digitally literate and those who aren't. And this is of utmost importance since it's time we get used to the fact that technology is rapidly taking over. And instead of going against it or wishing it doesn't, we're just slowing down our progress. So we need to work out a mechanism where people can have a healthy relationship with technology and use it to their advantage.
I will add to Sanvi's point about having like we have a session today. We have a session about more about technology, good uses or the bad uses, because people do what do you say? They use bad of technology as well in these days today, as you have heard of many scam calls or maybe hacking or taking your data. That's what I'll add to it.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, because when we were preparing the topics, because we are also let's say international group here, my first approach to technology was actually definitely not the points that you mentioned. I mean, let's say in the main problems for technology were definitely not the first one. My first ones were maybe it's also, I mean, it's not maybe, it's for sure, because there is, let's say, that the access to technology is less a problem in Europe. It's more about, let's say, the future. How can we handle all the resources in the future, because we have limited resources now. There is wars about components for creating chipsets and graphic cards and everything. And yeah, for me that was the main issue. But would you say so? You mentioned access to technology, but also inequality. Do you think, is it something that is only limited to technology, or is it just a more general problem in society? And tell me, I'm very curious.
I feel like it's a very general problem, not just related to technology. We have the weaker sections of society, then we have higher sections of society, and the gap between, especially the income levels, has been increasing day by day. And if you see, all of this is really interconnected. So the people who have higher incomes, they have access to proper education, they have access to better quality products, and they do have access to better technology. But for example, if you see, especially in India, there are so many people who live below the poverty line. They're even getting access to proper physical books is something that they're very privileged. They feel themselves like very privileged. So when it comes to for them to get technology, that's a very hard process, and that's something that we need to tackle.
Okay. Jay, do you want to add something, or?
No, that's what I had to say. What Sanvi said.
And so if we try to be solution minded, what would be what solutions could we explore? How could we try to solve these issues? What would be the first steps to do, in your opinion?
Jay, would you like to go first?
No, you can. I'm just thinking about
it. Okay. I think especially as students or someone at a school level who's trying to help people trying to overcome the barrier between technology, we could first of all indulge into social work. So during COVID, I've seen a lot of people who like a lot of us, we have the capacity to buy a lot of electronics and we don't use it as often, and the old ones we just let it be. If we could just donate these to people who are needy, and we could just devote some portion of our day into teaching them how this could work out, and that would be great. And especially government schemes like our prime minister, he launched a scheme of making India digitally self-reliant. So if we could take these schemes and put it into educational systems, then that would be really beneficial.
Yeah, interesting. Jay?
I'll add to it that we can have like one-to-one sessions, or like our like ours today, mainly we have like a spare computer if it's kept somewhere, that we first make them like really confident with working with technology. More like there are few people who have done a workshop, an offline workshop with underprivileged kids for technology, and then we start to donate. Like Sani said, if we have some spare things kept that we don't use.
So do you think that, so the way I hear it, and it's very interesting, is that the first aspect is getting the technology available, at least that's the first step, to everyone, right? So like, because not everyone has access to a computer or to has and then the second one is to teach them how to use it. And I think the third step would be actually to teach them how to use it, but safely, because also that's the thing. So you were mentioning, Jay, for example, the scam calls, all these issues, and yeah, indeed, that's they're problematic. But would you say, because we are not we are very close in terms of generations, but there's still let's say a small difference. Would you say that like there are already things, like there are things that you can do on your level at your generation, like right now, or maybe any advice also for my generation, or I mean our generation? That's would be also we can take any advice anyway.
I mean, I'll say to every generation not to give out their personal information.
Mhm.
That's the one way you can keep yourself safe. Because if you give out some of your personal information, that can be used against you, and you know what, anything can happen. That's the really first priority that you should uh, keep in mind when you're using technology, or if you are on calls or something. Never give out your personal information.
And do you think it's because it's interesting, so would you say that it's possible to have a life today without technology, or in the future?
I don't think so.
So yeah, I think Sanvi, do you agree with Jay?
Yeah, I agree with Jay. I mean, there are people who are living their lives without technology, but they're not able to, you know, get all the advantages that technology would be able to give them if they had access to it. So, for example, for us, it's really easy to network with people all across the world. Like right now, we're having these discussions with you, and we're able to collaborate with you. But people who go to, let's say, government schools and who don't have access to all of this, they're missing out on opportunities where they could grow as a person and increase their knowledge and their in-depth knowledge.
Okay, Keshav, I'll also be interested in your opinion or on the matter.
I think that like to me, one of the most sort of transformative things in terms of my understanding was that before our workshop was that I was more reluctant in the expansion of technology. But somehow during the 2 days of the workshop, this idea that it's preparing each other to equip ourselves to deal with technology in a better way, in a positive way, that's a better approach than fearing the technology itself, was something to begin with that was very transformational to me during the entire session. I became, I think, much more open during the entire listening to everyone that over the 2 days. Now, in terms of the technology, I also feel that while technology exists and a section of people have higher access, the same section also faces a set of challenges which are very specific to those technologies as well. For instance, when Jay has talked about the calls, the scam calls and all of that, or even issues like cyberbullying, or how we get addicted, like develop anxiety and attachment to devices, that we constantly want to look at our notifications, whether we have any responses on our Instagram stories and whatnot. So those are also challenges which are very unique to the people who are already using the technology. So while I completely resonate with what Sanvi and Jay have talked about in terms of just simply access to technology, I also feel that regardless of how rich, poor you are, how educated or illiterate you are, issues like cyberbullying, issues like data protection, I don't think we are as advanced as we would like to be in using these technologies. And the other part is that when I see something like Chat GPT now, which is cracking, like yesterday I read that it has already cracked business school exams and law school exams, and you can write complete essays, well drafted essays for assignments through that. That is, I think, also introducing a very different kind of complexity in the education system itself, where such technology is accessible to people. So there are more questions rather than answers, I think, that I would have in these cases. What do you all think about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. When it comes to like even the smallest of essays that we have to write for school or research that we have to conduct, what you'll see is that most people are just reusing each other's research. Like for example, there are so many tools available out there like paraphrasing or just like those plagiarism checkers. So we just, if we want to write a paper, for example, I think now with this, humans are becoming lazier and lazier. That they just take other people's research, combine it and paraphrase it and try to form it into their own. And with this, originality and creativity keeps on decreasing.
Wow, I think I just want to make one very quick remark about that. Was that recently I also came across this software, AI software, which can make music. You put the genre in it and you put some prompts to it, and it will also make music. So I wonder, like, what happens. There was this big shift from analogous to electronic music at some point, and now there is AI music that's happening. So what happens to the artists and their creativity and their willingness to toil hard towards that? Yeah, John, over to you, please.
Well, I'm actually, I have to say, I have a different opinion than you and then Sanvi. Well, I agree. It might appear that humans are getting lazier and lazier in a sense that, well, because technology is helping in making easier certain tasks, or at least to deliver a certain quality of tasks. The thing is that the problem when for example, when I was studying, I was told, do not use Wikipedia, for example, because it's online, don't know the truth. But I think now, I mean, we can all agree that Wikipedia is like probably one of the best things of internet, if not the best. For me, it's probably the best, because you basically type in information, you have very, very complete articles, very well sourced. And the thing is that I'm not sure that Wikipedia made us lazier. Well, it made us lazier in a sense that the threshold to access information is way lower, so it's easier to access the information. But the thing is that you have access to even more information, so you're not lazier, but you have to also develop different skills, which is not about knowing the basics, but selecting the information. For me, when I see, for example, AI, of course, it's easier to write, and you can have an essay completely written. But the thing is that now it's just that the assessment regarding the essay will now be different, and it will not be on let's say the amount of information, but more on the reasoning. So instead of, let's say, wasting time on collecting the information, that you will spend actually more time on understanding the information and reusing it and developing. So I think that essays will move from being able to let's say spit all the knowledge that you have ingested, which still you need to have this knowledge, and it's important to have this baseline. But I think let's say the next step is actually not to assess on how much knowledge you can assess, because, well, before you could only rely on your memory to do something, but now you have technology everywhere. So actually it's okay, even if in my line of work, it's okay not to know something. I am in a meeting, I just type in, I find a couple of information on it, and with ChatGPT it makes it even better, because it makes a summary where you can, even if you use it well, you can have a very precise data. But the thing is that everyone has access to it. So if you want to be better, then you have to know how to use it in a better way. But yeah, for me, that would be more my position, that the AI or development of technology is just raising the quality and the threshold of expectation, so we can do more and better and faster. Jay, what's your opinion on it? I see you nodding.
Yeah, I agree on that you said. I guess the chat GPT that we're talking about, that AI technologies, is actually increasing the quality of the work. It is not increasing the quality of our minds. To be honest, your work will actually, you have given your work from, these AI technologies that you're using, and that will give you like a perfect thing if you even paraphrase it, and then you get like zero plagiarism. That helps. But if you are given a task on the spot, you won't be able to do it. That's the like negative side of using AI. So I guess that John, you said about your teacher said not using Wikipedia. That's because she wanted to make you independent and not dependent on technology.
Mhm.
If you're dependent on technology, then you can't live further without technology if it is like snatched from you or something.
Well, for some, I agree with you. It's very important, but for certain tasks, not to be independent from technology. But the thing is that who can say today that they are independent from technology? I cannot do my work without technology. I mean, literally, I really cannot do my work because half of my team is in Italy, the other half is in Germany, and I am in the Netherlands. So first of all, I could not even have Teams meetings. Second one is that most of our data is I mean online, or I mean is shared, and all the data we work. I mean, I work in IT, but I also work in legal, and in legal it's the same. I mean, you still rely on technology. So I think it's more like you have, if you, for example, if you are a lawyer, indeed, your base competence, your base skills should not be dependent on the technology. You need to know some law by heart, not like to spit them by heart, but to know that the law is like this and have a critical legal thinking. But that's what the base skills for which you need not to be independent. And by the way, if you look at, for example, ChatGPT is not capable of having a legal reasoning, for example. It will only give you, it's very mathematical, so it gives you facts. But the thing is that when you start to touch upon more, for example, human rights, for example, which is very philosophical and depends on also the bias that one culture can have and the other one, like freedom of speech, is definitely not considered the same way in one country or another. An AI cannot handle this, and that's why also I think it's interesting. But yeah, Sandy, you wanted to add something?
No, that's okay.
No, okay.
But John, I think even in terms of fact checking, since the database from where ChatGPT is accessing is still the same database that is around us, which is filled with a lot of misinformation. I think that we can't always even claim that the things that we are getting at ChatGPT may be 100% fact checked or even sort of 100% correct in every way, because it's still sourcing itself from some already existing sources of literary sources, let's say, from in case when we are doing some research. So when it comes to narratives where like you talked about human rights, even some other historical facts, for instance, which may be quite disputed, and you need to have like understanding of the society to like contextually understand the narrative itself. There's no simple answer that ChatGPT can really provide, in which you can rely on in even in such cases, I guess. And one question that again came to my mind, which then became really central, John, you and all of us in the workshops, was what is technology? If we and when we say that we are separated from technology, what would that mean? Because what we learned from John Yu's session was that even paper was technology compared to non-paper times. So, John Yu, over to you.
Well, actually, before I give my opinion on what would be the definition, I would be curious to hear Sanvi or Jay on their approach.
I would just say that, like, how if I would say technology is anything that makes our life or any work that we do a little bit easier, a little bit more convenient. So, like you said, that paper could be technology. Paper is the way like paper is used all throughout our life for so many different purposes. So, technology is basically just using our knowledge and applying it wherever it could help in making our individual lives easier.
I mean, I can say technology is like a part of our life only. More like it's like a body part, if you say, because wherever we go, we take technology with us, and it just helps our getting our work easier. So that's what I'll say about technology.
So actually, we come back to actually even the existence of technologies to make us lazier, or it's because we're lazy that we're technology so that we don't have to do things, no? But yeah, actually, my definition is very close to the one also to the one that you gave, and especially Sanvi, where yeah, for me, technology is all about applying your knowledge, your understanding of things. It doesn't have to be backed up with calculation. Sometimes it can be empirical. I mean, especially if you look at the very well at the beginning, or if you take a look at some inventions or technology findings, they sometimes were not initially not mathematically chosen or physically proven. Sometimes you just observe. I mean, we had, for example, well, for the Earth gravitation, for the Earth rotation and the heliocentric gravitation of the planets. For example, from Galileo, or actually, well, from Kepler and then from Galileo, you at the time, I mean, you could observe, but you could not prove it. And yet it was already, for me, I mean, not technology per se, but it was an application of the scientific knowledge, where technology, I think today has a different meaning. I think what we consider technology today is actually everything that is high technology, or that requires a high level of scientific knowledge to achieve something. But there is a lot of also low technology, like well, it can be as simple as when you when you fold a paper plane. This could be technology, and it could be actually backed up with mathematical equations, because, well, basically you're relying on the portance of the air and the force of the air under the wings, and then it's already like a modelization of what could be then high technology. But yeah, no, that's actually but it's actually more the way we develop technology also, like where I'm very curious to know your opinion is, do we need to develop technology at all costs, or is there limits? Like, is there like ways we should not go? For example, there's been that, I mean, less these past years, but there has been a lot of debate, for example, about cloning. Like, should we pursue like our research into like cloning sheeps or cloning people, because, well, on one hand it can I mean, maybe save lives. You can clone someone, clone their organs, I mean, grow their organs, but the thing is that, well, would they be considered as human beings? Then they would have rights, and then that you have all these bioethical problematic. So yeah, curious to know your opinion. Like, shall we develop technology at all costs, or are there limits, or how should we develop technology?
I guess by developing technology, we should go slower, because then technology will go way ahead, and the humans, the knowledge will be like a bit less. So that are the drawbacks. I guess we should develop technology slowly. That's what I'll say. give like enough time to let two people understand about technology, into deep interests about technology, and then if like everyone's on the same page, then we can develop technology faster.
Yeah,
But
and
then, yeah, tell me. Sorry, Sanvi, go ahead.
yeah, so I think what we need to realize is that we live in an evolving world. So it's changing every day, right? And this is a process that is basically fueled by technology. And so as we develop the technology of the future, we should work towards creating a better world, which is like long term, which means that many different things as technology can merge with all parts of our lives. So, for example, there's ed tech, which we talk a lot about, education technology that can make knowledge more accessible globally, and algorithms have the potential to remove human bias. But also, when it comes to edtech, we need to realize that we should not use technology when it comes to things like creating harmful shortcuts. So, for example, some math teachers they do give us calculators, but some teachers they don't because they feel like students would use these uh, to solve even basic problems. And for example, if a child who's 5 gets an iPad from the start of their education, then they won't be able to exercise all 5 senses on a regular basis or have a very healthy imagination. So when it undermines basic learning or when it creates harmful shortcuts, that's when we shouldn't use technology.
Keshav, do you want to give your opinion too?
I think that every like technology is like a tool, and we can use it either for welfare or for not so much things related to welfare. For example, like nuclear technology. So we can either use it for energy or we can use it to make a bomb. And that so the centrality, as I see, is still our intention behind using the technology. So if we for instance using calculators, it's just a reflection out loud that if somebody is genuinely struggling with mathematics and they're just not able to do that, and that basic calculation is becoming a hindrance in their further learning, then in that case maybe a calculator is a good tool that sort of helps them overcome the basic issues and move forward with things that can enable their learning. Maybe they are good at something else within that space, and that calculator resolves certain impediments in that sense. uh, in another instance, calculator can enable us to not develop our analytical sort of analytical abilities, because we're simply just very tempted to always use the calculator and not really so John, you like Indian perspective, uh, we are conditioned to calculate everything without a calculator at the beginning of our lives, and then the later we go, like the more we use calculators much later. So I think that's been used as a tool to like sort of sharpen your mind, so to say, in the early years by not using calculator. And it's the same, I think, with even AI for that matter. If you have decided that you will use AI more responsibly, then it can probably benefit more people. But if you want to use that in a way that only gives you a gainful sort of a gain over others, or at the cost of others, in that case, again, like any AI can be used to your advantage and to somebody's disadvantage. For example, for frauding somebody, you can create an entire website and a voice enabled video with narratives, all of that, and fool somebody into a financial scam by having a very credible looking website developed with AI. At the same time, you can make an educational tool with the same technology. So it all comes back to us using tech as a tool. What do you think?
Well, well, the thing is, of course, the thing is, scams did not appear with internet, right? And they, did not appear with call centers before. They did not appear with call centers before. Cold calling, and they did not. Scams is like, I think, also part of the, let's say, human nature. Like you want to trick the other person or to steal from the other person. There are always people like that. Before you could, I mean, scams could have been just to identity theft was as simple as stealing the identity document of a person, changing the picture, and then it was good. And even before that, I mean, you could just take the name of the person and just go to the village nearby, and no one would know that it's not you. So I am very optimistic regarding technology. My only concern, and actually it's not concern, but it's more like it looks like in what you're saying, and maybe actually the Indian approach is education system is maybe good in that sense, is that throughout your learning path, maybe there are stages where when you start, you should not use these tools like AI because they give you shortcuts, right? And then, well, so you start with calculating yourself, I mean, mental calculation or writing it on paper. And then you go one step another, then you start to use your calculator, and then because you need more and more to do more and more complex calculation, and then at some point, well, doing it, I mean, writing it or doing it mentally is simply taking too much time. So that could be an option. What do you think? To have a staged learning with technology as well.
I guess, yeah, we should have like approaches like stages of technology of how we starting from the end. Because I heard from my friend who stays in Kerala, he has a friend in whose class they were discussing about, there was a workshop about Microsoft Excel, but the person knew how to use AI properly and not Excel. That's what happens. So it starts from the basics and then we go further and further. I would like to add the calculator thing because I have experienced that as well. Before like ninth grade, we had like this mental maths paper as well in our maths exams, and I never used to fail that exam. But like 9th, 10th, I studied in the international board IGCSE. That the from like in 9th, 10th, 10th, I was dependent on calculator. I used to like do like 4 into 4 with calculator as well because I was so dependent on it. But now there's a transformation in IB as well. I have like 3 papers. One is without calculator and 2 are with. So that's how transformation should work in technology. And I agreed to join you about stages of learning technology.
Sanvi, what do you think?
No, I completely agree with both point of views. That we should maintain the balance between when to use it and when to not use it, and not go to the extremities of the whole situation.
It actually, well, I mean, that leads me. Are you using like AI in your like? I mean, apart from playing with it, like, did you already used it like AI or certain tools and technology where that really made you feel like, okay, now I am actually achieving, let's say, even further knowledge?
So none of the subjects I study are very much into CS or computer science, basically. It's basically how much I use it in everyday life. Like my laptop is basically my best friend at this point. If I don't have it, I really feel that I don't feel complete. I need it for every single task that I do. But so yeah, it has made me feel that I'm very connected to technology in that way. But also, like Keshav mentioned, how we're constantly on our phones, constantly checking for notifications. Even right now, when I reposted things on LinkedIn about this workshop, I'm constantly checking if there are any likes or if there are any reposts, things like that. So it helps. I mean, it basically distracts you from what you should be focusing on, but it also helps you in a lot of other things.
And you, Jay, do you use also, I mean, because yeah, of course, I mean, I understand you are not specifically into computer science, but the whole, for example, the whole ChatGPT thing is that before AI was only for a small group of people who knew about it and were trying playing with it, but now ChatGPT is like available to everyone and everyone's using it. That's why there's so much noise about it. So that's why. But and you, Jay, do you use like for example, specific technologies or like AI?
technology is just my everyday use. I'm, to be honest, out. I sleep 8 hours or like five. I sleep 5 hours maximum, and out of those, like 19 or 18 hours, I just use technology. And about like using AI, yeah, usually use AI. We're doing my like experiments in school. Like I use simulations and all to do experiments in school. Till date, I thought like there was a chip that was used to like make noise cancellation headphones or earphones. But I did an experiment without using AI and I made noise cancellation. That's how I thought like we are not always dependent on AI. Things can happen manually as well.
And so, because for example, well, I have no specific use in AI for now. I mean, and then for example, in my work or anything, I don't see any specific use because I think the quality of the AI so far is, let's say, not good enough to replace the current technology. Because for searching information, for example, I think Google is better. I mean, is better. It's, let's say, offers you more choices on, for example, learning about. I mean, about specific topics that I already know of. I'm like a specialist of that. Well, I already have the knowledge. But it's interesting for like topics where I don't know anything about, and then I start a conversation. But the thing is that it has been proven also that it has limited resources, that also ChatGPT might, for example, invent some answers. So that's also coming back to, yeah, I mean, being very careful where the information comes from. But it's also valid for human. But what is very interesting here is that it all comes back to actually the human factor, so it's all about how you use technology, right? It all comes back to like, we are dependent. You were saying, for example, checking on your LinkedIn notification. I do the same. I will not blame you. I do exactly the same, checking who liked, who shared, who viewed my profile. But the distraction is more. It's not, well, of course, technology is made in a way that it's like grabs you, but it's also about your own behavior. For example, you can also disable notifications. I do it from time to time, like disabling all notifications from my phone. Therefore, you have no distraction. But it's all about like self awareness about our dependence on technology, isn't it? Do you want to? Keshav, do you want to? What's your dependence on technology? I think we have 10 more minutes. Do we?
Yes. I think I was just reflecting on this one piece of technology when Jay said that he's sleeping for 5 hours. One thing that really struck me is that nowadays with health tech, we are also monitoring our REM sleep and our heart rate through devices, even when we are sleeping. And so in a sense that a lot of us are actually using technology even to track our health nowadays, and the number of steps. And I know, yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people who are absolutely obsessed with the number of steps they have sort of walked in a day. So even if they have nothing like specific to do, to like no purpose, they will still walk those extra 2000 steps simply because that they become too attached to that number, 15,000 or 10,000 steps a day. So I've also seen like there are certain positives that that technology also has in that sense. In terms of AI, I believe that like AI definitely helps a lot in terms of, for instance, if I have to develop a website for my own work, I don't have to always depend on developers, because there's so much automation nowadays in web creation softwares inside the softwares themselves. So I'm able to do complex things on the internet without having to sort of rely on a developer, simply because the platform itself has used AI within that. I mean, ChatGPT is a more external sort of a B2C like B2C sort of a interface, but even like within certain softwares, automation, I think, has significantly made things. I think Canva is another big example where like we are so many of us are using Canva for so many things, whether it's presentations or external design, sort of collaterals and so on. So even like software, like besides these other technologies, they have become so many of us spend like 50% of our day on Canva and Wix combined. So yeah, so I like these. I'm very happy about these tools, and even Mid-Journey. So I think that's the last point. Is that some like personally, I am not very good with sketching and art. Uh, as much as I like it, and as much as I would love to express myself through art, but like when I saw Mid-Journey, for instance, uh, it helped me sort of unlock uh, a lot of expression, which initially I was very limited to because I was just not very good naturally with art. I know there's an issue about it stealing the work of many artists. Like that's another aspect of it as a caveat. But certainly it helped me get increase my interest and my time that I was giving to art than before, because there was a tool which was enabling me to do that. So yeah, thank you.
Well, I mean, it's the same. I mean, is it better that is it worse that it's a technology stealing it from an artist, or is it worse that it's a human? And because when it's a human, because I mean, it's a really open question. I actually don't even have an opinion on that, but it's not stealing in a sense that it's not copying. Of course, it's copying the style, but I mean, if you take a look at all the great painters, they all had inspirations and mentors and masters from whom they learned, and they took the style but slightly modified it or make it theirs. So I mean, that's also how it is. And I think like I think every human starts is like well, fake it until you make it. That's basically how it is. It's like you copy everyone, you copy people who know, to whom you know they know better than you. You try to understand why, how they do it, but then after that you then when you own it, then you can make it by yourself. But I think that's not necessarily worse if it's done by a technology, by a human or a human. Maybe there's this dual treatment, but it's because well we're coming to the end of the session, and I actually wanted to ask one last questions, because one last question to the whole audience, by the way. So yeah, I didn't see much interaction in the chat, but if anyone wants to provide their opinion, feel free to do so. But especially because we are talking about empowering the youth. I mean, empowering the youth in the use of technology. So from our discussion, from the workshop, what would be your advice for other young people? So like for people your age or a bit younger, to tell them how can they, let's say, how can they approach technology on the first one, and then how can they unlock their potential? Like how can they use technology the best way? What is the best way of using technology or starting to use technology when you are a young person?
More like you should start like when you are getting into technology, you should know about its basics, not like deep interest, but like you should know about simple basics so that you don't have any trouble while working with it. This can be the approach you can do, and you should use it safely and don't exploit it, I would say. Don't
What would be
exploit
the basics? What would be the basics to know, for
the
example?
basics, more like knowing about the office, so that you can work properly, Word, PowerPoint and stuff
Mhm.
that can help you in your work as well as your lifestyle. You can give information about anything and the world doesn't know. That's one thing. You can give different perspectives from technology by writing research papers and doing stuff like this, and like how Sanvi has done it, like writing books, making a page. That's how you can also give out information through technology. And you should never exploit it, so that you can take advantage over some person, some innocent person who doesn't know more about technology. That's all I can say if you are entering into technology as a young person.
Right, and my advice to them would just be to explore, but with caution. So you should know your limits and set boundaries. Like we need to realize that when is the point that we start to cross a line and indulge into activities that will only lead to a downfall. And technology can help youngsters in connecting and networking with so many people all across the world. So, like for example, if there's a professor you want to reach out to for research, or people who have similar interests as yours, if you have your own organization that you want to expand, set up chapters in different locations, learn a new class online, a new skill. So anything can be done through technology if we carefully use it, then it could really help us all become like better people and for us to progress really fast.
Yeah, thank you. And Keshav, what would be your advice? And I think maybe you can also we can also then wrap up.
So, John, then I think we should take your concluding remarks before I give my advice.
Okay, so my advice for using technology, or my advice is, well, I mean, honestly, okay, of course you have to protect yourself. You have to know about not sharing your information. I think that, well, as a privacy professional, I'm very glad you repeated it a couple of times, Jay. It's very good. And I completely agree. Do not share information because, well, on internet is forever, at least, well, as long as there's no nuclear war destroying all the data centers, it will be forever. So don't share any information. That's the first thing. So I agree with you. There are certain basics that everyone should, basic information everyone should know. Like the same actually, you learn rules of society, like do not kill, try to be nice to other people. You do the same thing online or with technology in general. But I mean, I think everything is interactive now. So that's the first thing. And then once you know these basics, well, just try. I mean, try. Of course, try technology in accordance with your knowledge. So I agree with the fact that you cannot, in accordance to your knowledge, but also your age. So of course, like when you're young, if there are certain some rules saying, okay, well, you should not use this before you're 16 or 13 or 14, social media not before 13. If there is this rule, it's also because there are some reasons. It might be frustrating, but trying to understand why is also making you ready for it. But it's of course very difficult to do when you're young. But try to use as much technology as you can. Of course, making it available to people is a very important thing to do, because it's only with technology, it's only by using it. I mean, same for everything, but especially for computers and smartphones. You can know the theory. I know the theory of programming. I cannot code anything. I cannot do anything. I mean, I'm extremely slow. So that's the thing. So yeah, my thing is, well, yeah, know the basics and then just try the technology, and there is no linear way of learning technology too. I mean, I'm very advanced on certain topics, and some topics where it looks obvious to some people who are supposed to be less specialist than me. I don't know. It happens, and it's okay.
More like if you are getting into technology, you should basically role play of yourself, like more like you are having a digital birth. You can say like that, having the rules of the society in your mind, going with precautions in your mind. That's how you
Yeah,
should use technology.
yeah, very good.
Uh, yeah, so thank you everyone. I think this has again been tremendous, uh, and also sort of took me back to the discussions during the workshops. I think we should sort of have these discussions as frequently as we can, because it helps us understand more. I think my only advice will be that understand your vulnerabilities, like be as self-aware as you can be about the technology that you're using. So like data protection, for instance, Jay and John, you have already talked about. But even things like, overly engaging with a screen at the cost of your health, for instance, not getting enough sun and, like physical sort of activities, not like becoming sort of not engaging so much always on the internet, that our human to human engagement in person, it starts deteriorating our ability to engage, and we develop anxiety to go into public or crowd or with other people. So I think that at a very basic level, it is also important to remember who you are, and then use technology to advance your positive goals, whatever they may be, whether they're learning or business or impacting other people's lives. I think there's so much power in technology today. Sanvi has sort of talked about these issues also. And to have a curious mindset when new technology comes, like to not fear from understanding the technology, but then how you utilize it and to what end, it will always still remain with you. And just finally understanding how can you safeguard yourself for that particular technology that you're using. Well, so if it's digital media, then how do you use that responsibly? But how do you take care of yourself against other people who may be, or WhatsApp and misinformation, for instance. So when you use all these messaging channels, then how do you differentiate between what's the right kind of messaging and what's misinformation? So that's that. And I think you can all think more and develop your understanding as you go along. So thank you, everyone. This has been tremendous. While we conclude our session, I'd just like to thank Jay and Sanvi for again being excellent participants during the workshops and being absolutely wonderful panelists today. John Yu for this amazing again ideas in curating the workshop, and Hania, of course, and today's discussion. Robert Timmer, our co-founder of the Human Potential Circle, and as well as a special shout out to Ms. Choma from Sun City School for for making that connection and enabling us to do the workshop with students. So thank you, everyone, and this video will be available on YouTube as well as the conclusion of the video. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.